Arizona.
Nice. I love it. Sweet. Well, thanks for joining me. I
Yeah,
appreciate the support.
are you in California still, or
Yeah,
where are you
so
at now?
so in 2020 I was in San Francisco.
Right.
And I was in a year-long lease where I just couldn't get out of it. And I wanted to leave right when COVID started. Like I wanted to travel and do what you did, hit the road.
Right.
But
I highly recommend it.
I know, right? It sounded amazing from what I read. So that was cool. Um,
Yeah.
but yeah, so my lease ended in December and let's see. I basically picked out places between Colorado, Los Angeles, and decided on LA. I had networks in both spots, but it was just an easier transition, a 1 day trip, drive basically. Packed all my stuff up and headed down south. So I'm in LA.
Awesome.
Yeah,
Good for you.
thanks. So yeah, it's good. I'm gonna miss it. I'm heading to Arizona for May, just to play some golf, go for some hikes, bike. I have a road bike in the back, and I don't know. It should be fun. But then I'm gonna head to Colorado in June. So
Yeah, that's so cool. I
yeah,
mean, both places like just beautiful scenery and such good places to ride bikes and hike and do all the things outside. So, yeah.
yeah, it should be fun. Have you been to like Sedona and Flagstaff, that area?
Yep.
Awesome.
Yep. It's um I think I could live in the desert, honestly. I love the temperament and just the natural beauty and um, I don't know. I actually my in-laws are there right now.
Cool.
So they're doing the RV thing as well. They went to Oakland to see my brother-in-law and sister-in-law and they're just sort of flying by the seat of their pants and wherever the road takes them sort of thing. So,
I love it.
yeah.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Well, thanks again. I'm psyched to talk to you. And just kind of get to know more about you. So registered dietitian nutritionist, licensed dietitian, certified strength and conditioning specialist, and certified personal trainer, plus like previous MLS nutritionist. Right?
Yes,
Did I miss anything?
sir. No, no, but I mean, all those letters and stuff, people don't necessarily know what they mean, and it's more about your life experiences
Yeah.
and how you can connect and relate to people than it really is. Because I could just keep going and get more certifications, but it's just more book knowledge, and
Yeah.
I feel like you know that can only take you so far. That's what I'm trying to say.
Nice. I love it. I mean, if you were to get another cert, what would you get? Where would you go from there?
I would probably get certified in integrative nutrition,
Okay.
so more of a holistic. That is me to my true nature. Um, but I was traditionally trained through K State,
Yeah.
and then over time, over experiences, I just realized telling people to have like the old food guide pyramid, 6 to 11 servings of grains a day is not really that healthy when we have a wheat product with tons of glyphosate and we're crossbreeding it with different strains and it's becoming like this foreign substance in our gut and our gut can't digest it and break it down. And anyway, that was a big tangent, but I just sort of taught myself more of an integrative functional nutrition approach and and read all kinds of books and just realized that the body is meant to work synergistically as a whole, not broken up into all these systems. And so um, the traditional medical system is to me broken because you can't just go see someone for your heart and not deal with your gut, or go see someone for just diabetes and not deal with other issues. So I just think it all should work together, and so that's what I try to do with nutrition is look at the body as a whole. It's a whole picture. So
I love it. It's yeah, I mean, easier said than done though, right?
Absolutely. I would say nutrition is a really tough field, and there's so much contradictions out there, and even me as a nutrition specialist, like I still have a hard time like sifting through all of it and figuring out what's real and what's not, and how to relate it to people in a way that's not, because they're not eating vitamin C, they're eating oranges. And we focus so much on the names of like the macronutrients and micronutrients, and but really it's just about eating the whole food, real food. So
Yeah, I love it. I mean, yeah, that's kind of how I see it too. So my mom is Greek and my dad is from Eastern Europe, and I've really been getting into blue zones right now, blue zone diets.
yeah,
Yeah, fascinating stuff. And
absolutely.
yeah, longevity for me is definitely a long-term goal right now.
Yeah,
So
that's awesome.
yeah, it's fascinating.
I find it really interesting with the blue zones is that, they're spread out all over the place. And those people are eating locally, right? Like
Yeah,
what their diet is. So it doesn't necessarily mean that that universal approach, like everybody should be eating fish and rice and vegetables. Well, that's not how they do it in Italy or Sicily, and so but maybe that's how they do it in Okinawa. Or
yeah,
anyway, I think the blue zones is a really cool thing to learn about and to strive for.
yeah. It's been a blast. A lot of oatmeal recently, which has been good and tasty. But I haven't. I don't know. I used to. I don't know what your morning routine is, but like I usually wait until about 12 p.m. to eat, just like when I'm hungry.
Yeah.
And whether that's good or not, I don't know. I'm sure it's better to get some nutrition in me immediately, but I don't know. I'm just it's working for me out, So I don't know.
Well, hey, you said it right there. It's
Yeah,
working for you. And
totally.
so that's what people have stopped listening to their bodies,
Yeah,
and they let other people tell them what they should be doing.
yeah,
And so we've lost tune to ourselves. And um, a diet is your eating style. It's what you can see yourself doing every day for the rest of your life. It's not temporary, or else it's not going to be practical. And
sure.
there is a lot of benefit to fasting. If and that's kind of what I do too. Like um, I cut off at like 7 or 8 p.m. and then I try, and I don't do this every day, but
Sure.
I try to not eat my first break my fast until 11 or 12 the next day.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but again, that varies. I think it's different for males and females with hormones and stuff. So fasting for men is a little bit easier. For women, I think it's a little trickier, and it needs to be like not every day, all the time.
Sure.
So sort of cyclical, I guess you could say. And sometimes I bulletproof my coffee, and you know, supposedly that doesn't break your fast,
Yeah,
depending on
that's
what you're putting in your coffee.
that's what I heard.
So,
Yeah.
um, and then other days I'll have an English breakfast tea, and
Yeah.
um, maybe I will eat something. It's usually something with eggs or a smoothie, um, or if I'm trying to like come up with a new recipe, or experiment a little bit, then I'll make whatever it is that I'm trying to experiment with, and then I'll try that as my breakfast.
I love it. I actually like with COVID and the restrictions of public facilities, I actually cut off coffee just because I had a reaction that I don't want to get into, but like, I would go out in like on the weekends, like hiking, golfing, whatever, and I just thought, you know what? Like why don't I just get into tea? And I mean I love coffee. Like I love my coffee black, strong, but I'm surprised in myself that I've been able to sustain and tea and just not even look back at coffee. It's kind of interesting. But
That's awesome. What type of tea are you into right now?
like green tea in the morning for sure, right off the bat. And then I got so Organic India is a company that I've just fell in love with.
Mhm.
The flavor is incredible. So their green tea is great. I use their turmeric tea as well. They have two versions, one with ginger, one without. And then they have this oh my lord, I'm blanking on the name, but it's this purple packaging, and it's like a jasmine but not a jasmine, and it starts with
Nice.
an R, and it's just delicious. So it just varies. And actually, I don't know. Have you ever gotten into Blue Lotus at all?
Into what?
Blue
Blue?
Lotus.
Nope.
Yeah, so a buddy of mine texted me about Blue Lotus tea and how it helps calm the nerves. It's a great post dinner relaxation application, basically.
Mhm.
And it's on my nightstand just to remind me, but I think I have to move it because I've gotten used to not using it. Um, so I have to just force myself to, or not. I don't know. We'll see. But yeah,
Uh,
so
I would say my favorite tea is Puka nighttime tea.
love it.
That's the one that you asked me what I'm obsessed with,
Yeah,
and I'm not obsessed with much, honestly. Like don't I don't tend to like gravitate towards things that I get addicted to, or but I do love that relaxation that it gives me at night before bed. And um, it has lavender in it, of course, but it also has several other things. And I give it to my husband, my kids, like if they need to relax, and I recommend it to people who are struggling with sleep. Obviously, routine is important, and if you're having caffeine throughout the day, but one of the things besides like an Epsom salt bath to relax at night and get that magnesium in there, and
yeah.
that nighttime tea is another thing that I try to recommend. And even if you need to put a little honey in it, honey helps with sleep too. So you wouldn't want too much sugar in there, but
Sure.
a little honey in your tea is not so bad.
That's cool. I didn't never realize that. That's awesome. Did you always feel this way? Like how did you grow up? What was food like in that part of your life?
Oh my gosh. Well, this might be a long story, Zach.
Okay. Well,
So
whatever makes you comfortable.
okay, well, I grew up in a really small rural town in
Okay.
southeast Missouri, actually.
Cool.
And the name is Bernie. Nobody's gonna have heard of it before, and that's okay.
Yeah.
Um, and it was about 1,800 people, so a big time farming community. And so my first job was chopping cotton,
Wow.
and and then of course, as I got older, babysat, and then I worked in the local grocery store. So being an athlete, because I played volleyball and softball in high school, um, I would say wanting to play as good as I can, and that athlete mindset of I want to be the best that I can be, and how can I do that, but not having someone that could help or teach me. That was the time when the low fat craze was in full effect, and for vanity purposes, I thought that oh well, I need all this low fat food. And so I would literally make my mom buy like separate groceries for me.
Nice.
Um,
I'm sure she'd
but I
love that.
also, yeah, yeah. And that it was basically taking out the fat and adding sugar and then making it twice as expensive as it needed to be. So
Sure.
I always tell my mom, I'm like, thank you for your patience with me growing up, because I'm sure I drove you nuts. Um, so I just felt like, I always had a home cooked meal. We never ate out. There weren't many options to eat out. But if we did, it was a special occasion, even for a fast food restaurant. Like, so the fact that I ate at home all the time was my saving grace. However, that was the time when convenience foods was really pushed on families and kids and moms. And, my mom worked her butt off, and my
Nice.
parents were divorced when I was like 12. And so she did what she could to make ends meet, but that meant like a lot of processed foods. And again, with me not knowing any better, I was having Doritos and drinking Pepsi or whatever. And at some point I just was like, this can't be good. I need to stop. And um my grandma always cooked everything at home from scratch. And so I was really interested in that. And I would follow her around in the kitchen and kind of learn some things from her. Um, and then going to college, that was when I really got interested in it, because I gained the freshman 15, as they call it.
Nice.
Um,
Same here.
but I also was having a lot of ailments, I guess you could say. I was going to a doctor for my allergies, who told me that I was going to have to be on Singulair and Allegra and medicine basically forever, Flonase, and then I was having acne issues, and so I went to a dermatologist. I had all the different antibiotics, to try to get rid of that. I was having stomach issues. Oh my gosh, my joints were just so inflamed. But I thought it was volleyball, so let me take some ibuprofen, let me ice and heat and do all those things. And it wasn't until I changed my diet that it changed my life. And all of those things went away. I mean, I cannot even, it was like a miracle, right?
Wow.
Like, stopped having stomach issues. I stopped having acne. I never use allergy meds anymore, except for when I'm around dogs that, like, their dander drives me crazy. But other than that, like, so I can attest to what food can do for you. It is the most powerful drug out there, and it's the most underutilized anti-inflammatory, painkiller, antidepressant, anti-anxiety, like that we use. Like, we're willing to take a pill with all the side effects to try to get rid of whatever's going on with us, versus looking at what we're putting into our mouths. And so that's the struggle, right? So
Yeah. Was there one immediate change that you made in that time where that stood out or that you still think of? It was like that was the most impactful, or was it kind of just everything?
Gosh, I mean, I had stopped drinking like sodas and having candy, like all that simple sugars, and that definitely helped. But I would like to say it was cutting out cereal,
Yeah.
crackers, bread, those type of carbohydrates. So now I would say it was gluten
Yeah.
more than anything. But I'm pretty practical with my approach. So I'm not gonna tell you, oh, you can never have gluten,
Sure.
But I think it's one of the first things that you could cut out that would make a big difference.
Yeah. I've been playing around with dairy recently and
Mm-hmm.
putting it in and then like recently taking it out. I did some blood levels recently where like my LDL cholesterol was like higher than I'd like it to be.
Yeah.
And I mean, I feel like I'm pretty active, so I don't, I'm sure there's reasons for that, but I'm curious to do it again and see how it checks out after removing dairy and maybe just
Yeah.
going to plant-based milks instead. Um, but even during this transition, I ordered a matcha latte a couple days ago, and I forgot to clarify that I wanted plant-based milk. And you talk about emotions, like even I feel like even a stomach ache, can put us in a bad mood or a weird mood, and that can just either snowball or just become something more or less, whatever it is. But it's just so fragile, the body. It
Yeah,
seems that
it
way.
is.
So
Yeah, the body is also amazing though. Like,
right,
it will really work for you if you work for it. And you talk about dairy, that's the next thing. Like,
right,
our conventional dairy that's on the market is really inflammatory to our gut. So many people think, oh, it's the lactose. I need to be lactose free. And maybe when you're a baby and you don't have the enzyme to digest it, that might be the issue. But when you're older, it's probably not the lactose. It's more than likely the casein protein. So, dairy has whey and casein, and the casein is what is causing gut problems and typically inflammatory. So, we personally have lucked out and found a farm close to us that they do only A2 casein.
Wow.
So their cows are genetically made to only produce A2. So
Love it.
it's like I've had friends that I've introduced their mozzarella cheese to who haven't been able to have cheese in years, and they can eat it, and so that's where I get our dairy from. Having two daughters, it's really important to me that if they have any dairy, it's organic, if not raw from the farm.
Hmm.
So I do think that um, everyone could probably benefit from, if you don't want to give up, cow's milk completely, at least buy organic.
Yeah. Yeah. I know. I actually, I think it's a real site that I went to where it was like realmilk.com. I could be wrong. That may not be exactly it, but it actually tells you where you can, there's like a store locator. It tells you the closest place to find, the most authentic, or, the most, you know, real milk, I guess. But yeah, anyway, so it's an interesting experiment, but kind of scary at the same time because, like, I mean, no one wants, a heart attack right later on or whatever it may be. So you got to fix it. Yeah.
Yeah, for
So
sure.
I was
Well,
thinking though about, yeah, go for it.
I was just gonna say you have the right mindset though, introducing more plant-based, just, I mean, vegetables are the best thing that you can do, for any cholesterol or heart issue. And then fruit, because it does have a lot of micronutrients, but it does break down into sugar as well. So berries are probably the best option there. And
Yeah.
um, saturated fat is kind of the conundrum, right? So I think cutting out dairy, really like focusing more on fish and eggs and maybe some pasture raised organic chicken. And I'm not against grass fed beef by any
Yeah.
means, but just staying on the lighter side of your proteins, and plenty of fiber, which you're going to get if you have plenty of vegetables and fruit. But fiber is huge for cholesterol as well.
Yeah. So when you were going back to college, when you were in college, when did you decide to pursue a graduate degree in nutrition?
So the the university I went to and played volleyball at did not have any kind of nutrition like program. So eventually I settled on exercise science.
Okay.
And you get some nutrition within that field, and but it wasn't much. And again, as an athlete, I only had the athletic trainer, the coach to ask advice for about like supplements or food, and they don't really, they're not trained in that. So um, my senior year they hired a strength and conditioning coach. And so like my spring season, like we were just playing out the rest of the season. We got to utilize him, but that was it. And so I had a professor that really pushed the CSCS. And so I thought, well, when I'm done with my degree, because you have to have a degree to get that certification, or at
Okay.
least you used to. I knew I wanted to pursue that. So I was doing my internship, pursued my CSCS, eventually got into corporate wellness as a health promotion specialist and a fitness specialist. And that was more of the general public, right? So I thought that maybe I would try to train athletes and be a strength coach. But really I was personal training, just, the general public. So that's why I went and got my CPT, certified personal trainer. And I had my own little side business where I was traveling to people's homes and personal training them in their homes, and sort of like a concierge personal trainer. And of course, everyone asks you like, well, what do I eat? And you want to help them, you want to give them this advice, but technically I wasn't, supposed to be. I'm not the nutrition expert. So that's when I knew that I needed to go back and learn more. And luckily, the company I was working for did tuition reimbursement. And, as long as I got A's and B's, I got my tuition reimbursed. And so it was a no-brainer, really. And that's why I chose K-State, because I was working in downtown Kansas City and still wanted to be able to work, and they had an online program. So it was a win-win for me.
I love it. The culture
Yep.
in Kansas City, is that, I mean, is it balanced where, you know, there are people that love nutrition or breathe it, or is, I mean, is it all over the place? What is that culture like?
So I would say, because Kansas City's really spread out,
Sure.
and so you have your urban areas and your very rural areas, and just like in most big cities, like, you know, your urban areas, they are a little more in tune to nutrition and a little more progressive, and then you have your rural areas where it's a little more old school, and so it's
Yeah.
all over
It
the
just
place,
varies.
really.
Yeah.
But you know, with Kansas City being, it's very, you know, it has medical school, it has some pretty good sports, and um, a lot of art and music happen here. And so I think just the culture here is really growing, and it's sort of like the, um, I don't know, I don't want to say it's the San Francisco of the Midwest, but like
I mean, it could
you
be.
know, it's a pretty cool progressive city.
I love it. That's awesome.
Yeah.
I need to go. I've never been. Um,
You absolutely should. There's a lot of cool things about it. I mean, we're pretty landlocked here besides the Missouri and Kansas River, which is cool to look at, but that's about as far as it goes.
okay.
There's some people that kayak it and stuff, but um, we actually live in a little lake community,
Yeah.
so it's kind of nice because I feel like we're tucked away and have this lake, and but yet we're 12 minutes from downtown. So
I love it.
yeah.
That's awesome. So, and then was your passion for soccer always alive and well? Or, and like, how did you transition to MLS from there?
So um, after getting my dietetics degree and working in corporate wellness, I switched to, we moved. So we
Sure.
moved to a smaller, it was a college town, but it was a D2 school. And um, that's where I was a clinical dietitian.
Okay.
So I worked in the local hospital, and just basically to have a job and keep my skills up. And um, I would say that I did not love that job. I felt like I was keeping, you're just keeping patients alive. You're not helping them. And so it was a little disheartening. Um, and just really seeing the lack of knowledge that people do have when it comes to nutrition, the quality of foods that, you know, cafeterias can put out for their patients. And now not all of them are like that. I did do a couple rotations where the chef and the cafeterias were awesome, and but I did not love clinical dietetics at all. I love the challenge of it because, you know, the disease processes and, you know, just learning about the body and how food can relate to that. But it was not my forever job for sure. In the meantime, I also was a WIC nutritionist. I volunteered at the college. I helped their volleyball team. I went in every week and spoke to them and helped them with nutrition and got to know a lot of the coaches. And so I would help, you know, well, this basketball player needed help and this football coach had questions. And so I was always in the sports realm thinking that I'm never going to be able to make this a job. You know, it's a really tough field to get into. It's something that not every organization sees the value in it and is willing to pay for it. But they'll pay for another strength coach to make you train harder and train longer. But food doesn't have anything to do with it, you know. And so, so I just kind of gave up on that and started doing concierge wellness. And so I was part of a wellness team. We had doctor, chiropractor, massage therapist, personal trainer, dietitian, like yoga teacher, Pilates. Like we had the whole, like, you know, whole approach. And we worked with some high profile CEOs, um, and I kind of, you know, I did my little side business too, where I'd see patients or clients on my own. And I just thought that was kind of going to be my gig. And so one of the owners of Sporting KC was one of my clients. And I went to a Sporting KC event where I knew their chiropractor. I met their strength coach at this event, and he said, "Hey, we're thinking about hiring someone for nutrition. Would you be interested in the position?" And of course, I was like, "Sure."
Yeah.
So it wasn't something where I applied for the job or they advertised for it, or it was like, and the strength coach really wanted someone that he could trust. And so he obviously trusted the chiropractor who trusted me. And so it was kind of that circle of trust. And that's how I ended up with that job.
Love it.
And they weren't looking for someone full time at that moment. So I was like a consultant, and I came in and probably 2 days a week and worked with the guys mostly like when they were either pre training or post training.
Mm-hmm.
So I could kind of see like what they were eating. And I completely revamped their training kitchen. Like I pretty much threw away everything that was in there. And because it was every bagel flavor you could imagine, and all the breads and just sugary yogurts and the worst granola bars ever. And so the head coach, Peter, was super supportive, and he was like, "Whatever we need to do, let's do it. Let's rip the Band-Aid off."
Yeah.
And so we just threw away everything and started over. And I presented to them, so I could kind of like, okay, this is my philosophy. This is what I think is going to be, the healthiest for you guys. And I over communicate. So I had like tons of handouts, and just to try to reiterate what I was, teaching, and so that it could help them at home too. But I went to games and stuff, but at the time I wasn't like, in the locker room with them. Now the next season they hired me full time, and
Got it.
that's when it was like at the games making smoothies and stuff like that. So
At that point, did you make changes that you wanted to make but weren't comfortable making? Like further changes?
um so you have to put your big girl pants on to
Yeah.
work in an industry like that. You're a female surrounded by males. And so I would say that I got out of my comfort zone, yes, but I also believed in it, and I
Sure.
was very passionate about it. And so I think that carried over, and people wanted to make these changes because I, put up a good argument why we needed them.
Yeah. So, I mean,
Um,
yeah, so you're a full-time MLS nutritionist. What's the day in the life of that like? Like, when does your day start? What does it end? And I mean, you kind of touched on some things, but if you could kind of just walk me
yeah.
through that.
Well, so once I did become full time, I worked with the chef a lot. So we were lucky enough to have a chef. We were able to control breakfast and lunch for the guys. So obviously, there's a lot of meal planning and menu planning there. I would get there before breakfast, make the pre-training smoothies. And then they also had, hot breakfast options and oatmeal and so forth. We had omelets made to order. What else? And then we had just, specialty stuff too that changed periodically. And then when the guys would go out to train, well, I would mingle with them at breakfast and, just talk to them. If I had been working with some of them, I would like check in. And but it was really just like time to get to know them and my presence to be there. And also I liked to nitpick at them, like, why didn't you get any vegetables? Or, why are you eating all that sugar? And then they would go train, and I would kind of do some administration stuff. So, emails, talk, or phone calls, create handouts, whatever it was I needed to do. And then before they came back in from training, I would make post-workout smoothies. And so those would be ready for them as soon as they came off the field. And then they would be in the training room afterwards, with recovery and stuff. And so again, I was in there with them, mingling and talking. And sometimes I would have individual meetings with them. Sometimes we'd have body fat scheduled. Some days were recovery days where they did more recovery stuff, and I would make recovery shots. And then they would have lunch. And so again, I would be there, during their lunch. And I would always go before everything was served to make sure that it was kosher and that I approved. Because sometimes the chef would change things up a little bit on me and I wouldn't know. And so I had to stay on top of him a lot, and I had to teach him a lot too. In fact, I ended up having a meeting with all the kitchen staff. Like, look, this is my goal with these guys. You can't be serving them this liquid trans fat, with their omelet or whatever. It has to be real butter or extra virgin olive oil or avocado oil. And anyway, it's education. So I would meet with some of the players' wives or families and, try to help them as well. And there was a lot of communication we had a team app. And so I would contact guys through that. If it was hot out and they did weigh-ins and they were losing too much water, I would have to stay on them about hydrating. And so I would say it kind of looked different, all the time, but the main consistencies was the mealtime and the smoothies. And so, but yeah. I worked their training. I had to be there at like around 8ish.
Yeah.
So not too super early. It looks like my face froze for a second.
Oh, it's all good. No worries.
And then I would probably, so I had 2 young girls.
Yeah.
And my husband's a physician. So it's safe to say he's the breadwinner. And so I would
different ways, I'm sure.
I know. I would leave work and because I would have to go pick up the kids or be home for them, after school. So my day was usually around 8 to 3:30.
Yeah.
Now the other medical staff, they were there like 6:37 until 6:37 at night. And that was their job, was obviously more hands-on and a little different than mine. I can communicate with the athletes via text, phone call, email, however, outside of work. So they have to be there physically a little bit more. So
sure. So I mean, like with everyone's body literally being different, did you have individual goals with every player, or is that?
Yeah.
Yeah. Wow.
Yeah. So before, like I went through every single player and talked with them about what their goals were. And then what supplements they were taking. Because, some of them would just take whatever was provided, whereas others took it upon themselves to, take that further and try other supplements. And I wanted to make sure that those lined up, well, if your goal is to increase lean mass, maybe you should have a creatine of some sort instead of, trying to take these supplements like green tea that's going to help you lose weight or whatever. So anyway,
yeah.
So I would go through them with their supplements, what their goals were, and then I would make recommendations per individual accordingly.
And are they able to correlate like on-field success to nutrition and those goals, or is that just too tough? Like it's not apples to apples.
So, well, I mean, it depends on what you're measuring, right?
Okay.
So, are you cramping or not?
Right.
Like that's a pretty easy one to tell, like, if it's working,
Sure.
Energy levels, GI stuff. Soccer players have, they're creating a lot of exercise induced like oxidation and stress really. And so they have some GI issues. They're nervous, before a game. And so I would say like, gut health was definitely something. Body fat percentages, that was always a big thing.
Yeah.
But it's really tough tough to measure. But there were definitely those people who, like I said, weren't cramping anymore, or did feel better, didn't have to go to the bathroom right before, they went out on the field, and had more of that endurance and longevity. So I definitely think, that it helped.
Sure.
And they did win the Open Cup that year. That
Love it. Look at
that
that.
I was like, introducing this nutrition to them. So
Can you like put that on your resume? It's just like
right.
this did happen. So
Oh, I totally tease, the head coach and stuff. I was like, it's because you hired me, and they started eating better. That's why they won.
I love it. That's awesome. When we first spoke years ago, and correct me if I'm wrong, but I think what you told me was soccer players have more of a need for micronutrients, and I'm guessing based off just that your comment about potassium, is that accurate versus like basketball and football and other sports?
Well, I mean, obviously it has to do with playing time, and are they playing the whole 90 minutes of soccer? Like I said, that they create a lot of exercise induced stress.
Sure.
They sweat a ton. They're, the needs for endurance is different than the needs for that start stop, and or like weightlifting, and more of that type of sport. So I definitely think that they need to supplement with a multivitamin, multi-mineral type of supplement.
Wow. Okay.
Because,
Interesting.
I mean, when you're creating that exercise induced stress, it causes oxidation in the body. That's where, free radicals are happening. And, that can cause problems down the road if you don't take care of that. With antioxidants is what helps take care of those free radicals. So I do think that soccer players, because, I mean, they're literally like running 7 miles a day,
Crazy.
and so if you don't have the proper nutrition or micronutrients for recovery, then you're just breaking down the body.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
you wrote this article. I think it's Sports Today, right? Are you still writing for them?
For Soccer Today,
Soccer
yeah.
Today. I'm sorry. Yeah.
It's okay.
About is it like are Oreos really popular with soccer players?
That's funny. Um, so before I go to Oreos, I do want to
Yeah.
say that I, I'm like considered this soccer nutritionist now, which obviously working for the MLS, that's understandable. But I want to say that my approach is going to be the same for basketball, for volleyball, for, you have to start with that basic foundation. So
Yeah. No, makes total
anyway,
sense.
I'm not just a soccer nutritionist is what
Sure.
I'm trying to say. But the Oreo thing is funny because the editor in chief of Soccer Today, her son played for the academy. So when I was Sporting's dietitian, I was also their academy's dietitian, their USL team, and then the first team. So it wasn't just the first team. And their academy, they're training them and molding them in their ways to eventually hope that they make it to the first team. And so her son played for the academy, and she went to one of my presentations because let's face it, I'm going to present to 13, 14, 15, 16, 17 year olds, but how much of that are they actually going to listen to or retain? I need to talk to your parents or the guardians, or who's buying the food, who's cooking the food. So I did a lot of presentations for academy parents, and which is where I would say I was probably the most impactful, honestly.
Yeah, makes
And
sense.
so Diane was in the crowd. She came up to me afterwards, and she was like, I have never heard someone talk about nutrition the way that you have. And it's so relatable, and I need you to write for me. And at the time I was like, oh, I don't have time to do that, but maybe someday. And so that someday turned into whenever I quit with Sporting,
Yeah.
I love writing, honestly.
Nice.
If I could hide behind a computer and just type how I feel in my words, like
Yeah.
that would be great.
I love it.
Uh, So I started writing for her, and that was the first article she asked me to do. She was like,
Oh,
and she's in like international soccer in that world and stuff too. So apparently Oreos are pretty popular. And I didn't experience that with, personally with the soccer players. It was other things, but I was like, sure, I'll write about Oreos. And so that's how that article came to be.
I love it. And I mean, so I'm gonna say like you in the article you write about how they're as addictive as like potentially cocaine.
Hmm.
That's,
Yeah.
I mean, crazy to me.
it it's crazy, but it is the truth. And
Yeah,
Dr. Mark Hyman says it best. they're
yeah,
they're franken foods. They are not real foods. They're made in a lab. They're purposely made to be hyper palatable. Your taste buds just go into overdrive when you eat these foods, and it really does trigger those pleasure areas of the brain, just as a drug would. And so you create this cycle, like, oh my gosh, I have to have that feeling again. And so you crave it, and then you refuel with the same thing. And so it's like this sugar roller coaster that you send your brain on.
I'd be lying if I didn't say that during COVID I definitely bought some Oreos, and I definitely like could not stop eating them. At one time. So it's
Well,
addicting.
we all have our vices.
Oh
Like,
my god, yeah,
I see, I totally like relaxed during COVID and was like, oh, I can have those noodles again, or happy hour drink. Like, I need something to look forward to. And so, yeah, I mean, we were cooking at home all the time,
yeah,
but it wasn't always the best food, because it was like we need something fun and comfort. And so, anyway, I think everybody's in that same boat. They picked up a few bad habits, and
yeah,
they've got some goals to work on. So
yeah, for sure. So you're a mutual follower of Dr. Mark Hyman.
I am.
Awesome,
I,
love it.
yeah.
He's got
I
some great stuff.
He really does. And I can connect to his story as well. Like, he's a medical doctor, traditionally trained. My husband's a medical doctor, traditionally trained. I was a dietitian, traditionally trained. Yet we figured out that, you know there there is more to taking care of yourself than, one, just allowing your genetics to take over, because you are in control. I mean, yeah, you can't help what you were given, but you have a lot of say so in what happens with your genes. And you can turn on that cancer gene, or you can turn off that cancer gene. And so I just think um, he is very practical with his advice. His book, Food, What the Heck Should I Eat, is a great book. And I tell a lot of people that they should buy that book as a reference. And um, anyway, I just think he's in that world, and he's pushing a good message all the time. And
Yeah.
um, and so I do really like him a lot.
So how do you really feel about protein powders?
Well, most of them are crap,
Yeah.
honestly.
Yeah, totally.
I think they just have a lot of cheap ingredients, sucralose, maltodextrin, um, and and why? Like, what? Why do they need to have all of this stuff in there? Probably for taste is part of it, but I am more of a natural person. Like, if you can get your protein in a smoothie with nut butter, chia seeds, hemp seeds, flax seeds, even some Greek yogurt, organic, then I would rather see you get it through natural sources than putting in this fake powder. Now, there are some that are good and that have, one, two, three ingredients in them, and what they are. And those are the ones that, I would tell people to go for. So
Yeah. So, I mean, I feel the same way. I mean, I think there's been different stages in my life where it's like, it's easy, right? Like if I'm on the go, it's like, okay, there's protein, there's greens, whatever. But what always trips me up is what you just said is the ingredients, like the number of ingredients, the fact that our bodies can only process so much protein at one time, right? Um, People come to me and they say, "Oh, well, like this has all these ingredients." Can you talk about like assimilation and how like our bodies just can't assimilate all that at once?
Well,
Or is
so
that not it? Is that not accurate?
well, I mean, our bodies are trying to process so much.
Mm-hmm.
And so not just the food that we put into our body and those chemicals basically, because food breaks down into at a cellular level and basically tells our cells like what to do. And so if we're putting in all these chemicals or fake foods or preservatives, for example, our bodies don't know what to do with preservatives. Like our guts can't break them down. And so one of two things happens when the body is presented with something that it doesn't know what to do. It will just bundle it up into our body fat and store it because it's like, I'll just deal with you later. Or systemically it can cause like a reaction, and over time leaky gut, because we're just tearing up our guts with all of this these horrible chemicals. And so our liver as well is constantly trying to detoxify, regenerate. And when we put bad things into our body, the lotions, the hair stuff that we put on our body, the things that we surround ourselves with, cleaning products, chlorine in a pool, petroleum gases, whatever, like it just, eventually it's going to break down. It just cannot keep up. So that's why, I feel like people experience issues with their hormones, and, maybe they're not able to have babies, or they're having like all these gut problems and, or skin issues. It is your body telling you like, it can't keep up. You have to change. You need to do something. And you need to, you have to listen. So,
Yeah. So, I mean, speaking of detox and natural cleaning products, I had no idea about detoxifying your body from, I guess, unnatural cleaning products like soap, and like that has an effect, right?
mm-hmm.
That's
Yeah.
wild.
Uh, yeah. I mean, it's just like knowing where your food comes from and what the food is. Same thing with your beauty products and so
Yeah.
forth.
It makes total
Um,
sense, I guess. I guess just when I first read it, I was like, huh, I didn't think of soap, I guess, or things like that. But
yeah,
even though I buy clean stuff, I can't imagine everyone thinks like that.
no,
Yeah.
no, and that's what I'm saying. Like that's why I want to get the word. I want to educate, as much as possible, because no, this is not stuff that people just know or think about. Because again, one, all the things that are being promoted, are not this usually. So
Sure.
it's all the unhealthy stuff. And when you get into that self, I don't want to say self-preservation, but you're in life and you're just like trying to survive. And it's easy to allow others to think for you,
Sure.
and just to go through the motions, and like, well, the government's not going to tell me to eat this if it's not good for me, and sort of thing. And we've just lost the ability to think for ourselves, and or even want to think for ourselves, and usually until something goes wrong, and we have to like look at it in a different way.
Yeah. I mean, especially with all that, especially with so much content in the world right now, that we're just receiving all the time.
Yeah.
It can't be good for us on top of all that. So,
Yeah. I think I've said this before. Ignorance is bliss sometimes,
yeah,
right? And
completely.
um, I it's a rabbit hole. Like when I start reading stuff that's out there, and I just have to turn it off. I'm like, I'll just want to either argue with them, or I'm just like, oh, people are going to believe this. And with social media and all the avenues that we have to get whatever messages out that we want, it's really tough.
Yeah. So you're still writing for soccer today? Is that right?
Yep.
Sweet. And
Yep.
then
Still.
that's awesome. And now you're doing Amy Dirks Sports Nutrition too, right?
Yeah. So that that's kind of been my baby this past couple years. Basically, Amy Dirk Sports Nutrition developed through my experiences with athletes, and and working with teams. And then obviously my experience starting a sports nutrition within the MLS. And because there's no like handbook that you're given like, okay, here's what you do with this team, you know, to start this sports nutrition program. And with me having the approach that I have, like more holistic, and I had a hard time. Like, I wasn't trying to reinvent the wheel necessarily. I'm like, if I can find a handout that I can just tweak or, give to the guys so that I don't have to create it, then awesome. But I couldn't. I didn't want to tell them to eat peanut butter and jelly sandwiches all the time or drink chocolate milk as your recovery. Like that wasn't my philosophy. So I had to create everything myself. So presentations, videos, handouts, you name it, I created it. And I kind of knew that with the schedule that the MLS had, like I probably wasn't going to be able to keep up with that for a long time. So in the back of my mind, I was like, okay, this all these things that I'm creating is going to help somebody, and I should do something with it. And so I knew, helping the academy and the USL and the MLS team, but not everybody can afford to hire a sports nutritionist. It's just not in their budget. And then with COVID too, I was like, oh my gosh, I need to make this a virtual, program so that any sports team that wants to implement sports nutrition into their curriculum, but doesn't know where to start, can just purchase my program, and it's all there ready for them. All they have to do is decide when they want to implement it. And if they want to implement it like super fast or over the whole season or over the whole year. And I explain in the videos how to use the handouts or how to use the presentation. So, I mean, you could even just get like an intern to implement the program, or your captain of the team, or the athletic trainer, or whoever. So
That's cool.
that's where Amy Dirks Sports Nutrition came from.
Nice.
Is a way for me to help other teams and sort of like be their nutritionist, but not have to physically be there.
So is that the long-term goal, is just to have that available to everyone, or is there something beyond that?
No, there will be beyond that.
Yeah. Cool.
Because this is the start, right?
Sure.
Like, so this is the foundation program. So you can't get sports specific, gender specific, age specific without starting here. And so the ADSN program is your solid sports nutrition foundation. And there's supplements in there. There's all sorts of stuff, but it's still general. It's not super specific, because if you're not doing the basics right, then it doesn't matter what else you do, because I believe that you cannot out supplement a bad diet. You cannot out train a bad diet. And so this is where you start.
I love it. So I want to wrap up with some personal topics. Do you have like a
Okay.
sweet or savory tooth?
I am not a sweet tooth person. I am a savory tooth person. So you put chips and salsa in front of me, or chips and guacamole, and I will go to
I
town.
love it. I'm jealous because if it says artisan bakery, I am there. Um, yeah, it's
So
just
you
tough.
like the sweet side of things.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, so my mom's dad, who's from Greece, came to the U.S. And basically opened up a chocolate shop, and it's still like alive and well. It's
Really?
actually the crazy thing is during COVID, they had one of their best years ever. It's called the
Uh,
Commodore, and I mean, it makes sense, I guess, right, with everyone being stressed. But yeah, it's called the
that's
Commodore.
awesome.
Yeah, it's super cool. It's
So
in upstate New York, and it's I think you still can't order online, which we've been giving him crap about, for
I was gonna
years.
ask that. Yeah.
Yeah. But if you're ever in like upstate New York, near New York City, it's in a town called Newburgh that, it's rough. I wouldn't say it's a great tourist spot, but yeah.
Yeah,
So
but I like when we travel, those are the places that we like to go. Like,
yeah,
I don't necessarily want to see all the touristy stuff. So
yeah,
um, I would love to check out a place like that.
yeah, it's
So
cool.
the whole like Greece and your, heritage. And so have you been to the Mediterranean?
Yeah. We did
Yeah.
that. We did that. Man, I think it was like 2012. I want to say, I'm going to butcher the year, but around then, 2012, 2013.
Yeah, that's so awesome. That's my bucket list, is because the Mediterranean diet is, you know, it's the standard gold diet. Like if you had to follow one diet, yeah, maybe some tweaks with the grains and stuff, but for the most part, it is, you just can't go wrong with it, really. So from a culinary perspective, obviously a beauty too, like just Albania, like Greece, any of those places I want to go to.
Check it out. It's incredible. We did so my family is from this small town called Skuda, which is outside of Sparty. So technically, I guess we're Spartan. And yeah, so we did that. We did that for like I want to say maybe 3 to 4 days. And every morning you wake up and you hear, talk about like, your own, farm basically. You hear the bread truck coming through the village with fresh bread every morning. Wild.
Yeah.
Um,
And I mean, so we went to France right before COVID sort of went crazy. And actually, that was where I first heard about the coronavirus, was on a news channel while we were in Paris.
wow.
Um, but I was so excited to be there and to not feel guilty for having, bread or noodles or cappuccino or whatever. Just they just do things so differently over there, and we really should take notes. And
Yeah.
you have to get back to the way that your grandparents ate, and eat from the earth, and just do things that old school way, and we would all be so much healthier for it.
Yeah, I have a similar grandmother to you who would basically cook every meal from home, and
Yeah.
if I didn't, I'd make sure I had to eat everything basically. But
Yep.
yeah, I mean, she lived to be, man, I mean, mid 90s, and that entire side just longevity through and through, crazy.
That's awesome. that is
Yeah.
that is amazing.
So
Well,
yeah,
go ahead.
I was gonna say, I asked you about like your tastiest snack. I need to make these Amy's nut butter energy balls. They sound awesome.
Yeah, I used to make them quite a bit for sporting, and I just took like bits and pieces of recipes, that I had seen, but I definitely tweaked them a lot with the Keiko powder and the coconut oil and so forth. So, but my 9-year-old loves those, and she loves to make them, and so we make them pretty often, and then freeze some, and then we give them like to the teachers and stuff as gifts. And I try to I'm that mom that like doesn't bring actual treats. I'll bring like non-food stuff, or maybe like some homemade popcorn from the local like little popcorn place. And so anyway, my kids are like, Mom, can we just have the cookies that are bad for you?
That's hilarious.
Someday you're gonna thank me, I promise.
Exactly. So I guess last question would be like, do you have your top three wellness goals in mind for like short term, midterm, and long term for the future for you?
For me personally,
Yeah.
um so I mean, post COVID, yeah, like I really need to focus on getting back to being more gluten free. I have that 80-20 approach. So truthfully, 80% of the time, I know I'm doing the right things and what I should be doing and what I should be eating, and drinking plenty of water and getting plenty of sleep and so forth. But 20% of the time, like, you know, I feel like you have to live life and have fun. And, I think one of the questions that you had asked on paper was like cravings, and how do you handle cravings and stuff like that. I don't, because I don't deprive myself of anything. Like, okay, well, if I really want those dark chocolate almonds, I'm gonna have a few, but I don't have to eat the whole container. And so I feel like that is how I manage and stay, been the same weight for 20 years now or something. I don't know.
Wow.
Like, um, because I don't deprive myself. And you know, when you stop having those foods that create that roller coaster, you know, with insulin and the brain, and you don't really crave, like I don't eat sugar. Like, you know, I love the taste of vegetables, and fruit is sweet enough for me. And but it takes time to get to that point. You know, if you're used to eating processed foods and fast food and so forth, like, no, your palate is different. It's not going to appreciate the taste of steamed broccoli with a little butter and some salt. So, you know, it's a process.
Yeah, I was talking to
So,
someone about that last night about just how even mental stuff, like it's a practice, you know, like you can't expect it, you know, you can't expect it to change immediately and just keep working at it.
yeah, no, and it's not an all or none approach. And so that's what I try to tell people, because they think, oh, I have to change all of this at once, or I have to work out the whole 45 minutes at one time. And no, you don't. You can baby step this as much as you need to until it becomes a habit, and then you can add more to it, you know. So if you can pick one or two things that you can do that's good for yourself every day, then that's two more things that you were doing, you know, than what you were doing before. So you can't look at it as all or none, or else you feel like you're failing all the time. And that's just, that's not a good way to approach it. So yeah, I need to cut back on some of those foods that I know are not, you know, um, healthy for me personally. Um, Keep increasing more vegetables into not only my diet but the kids and the hubby, and I usually am able to do that through smoothies and salads, and then sometimes we'll do like Buddha bowls or poke bowls, or you know, and I can always throw in some things that way. The air fryer, honestly, um, I have a Ninja. It's a toaster oven, but it's also has an air fryer setting. And so, you know, when I cut up sweet potatoes or zucchini, and it cooks it to a good texture, and so it feels like you're having more like French fries instead of squishy zucchini.
I love it.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
I don't know. I mean, I've always stayed pretty consistent with working out.
Yeah.
I always drink plenty of water, which you said you struggle with
Oh
a
my
little
God.
bit.
I don't know how you do that. I,
Well,
yeah.
to me, I'm like, I don't know how you cannot.
Yeah.
So, you know, I keep water by my bed. So as soon as I wake up in the morning, I have water, and because you do dehydrate as you sleep,
Sure.
so I try to drink water before I have coffee. And then if you're drinking teas, then you know you're getting some hydration in that way as well. But you know, I just fill up like either a water bottle or a huge 40-ounce cup and just keep it with me at all times. If I travel anywhere, I have water with me. If I even throughout the house, like if I'm sitting on my computer somewhere, the water's beside me. Um, I tell people to set an alarm on your phone. Every 2 hours, it's going to go off, and that reminds you you need to take a drink. You know, there's apps that do it too, but and then, you know, if you're not going to the bathroom every couple hours, 2 to 3 hours, then you're probably not drinking enough. And um, like same thing with your urine color. Like if it's
Yeah.
not lemonade, then you know, or clear, then you're not drinking enough. So
Yeah. Every morning I wake up and I'll drink, you know, I'll drink some water, and then you know, obviously with tea, like you were saying, that helps. But I find myself like after maybe 12 p.m. to like 5, or even at night. I mean, I try to think of it before I go to bed, but it's not the first priority, is what I was saying. What I
yeah,
think, you know. So
yeah. Well, you know, I see people, and I try helping them, and you know, they're having coffee in the morning, Diet Coke with lunch, wine with dinner, and they're not drinking, you know, hardly any water. They have headaches, lack of energy, can't go to the bathroom very well, and it's all like a quick fix if they would just drink more water, you know.
yeah,
Seen tons of people who switched from sodas and to water, lost tons of weight. And it's amazing, like, because water is involved in every bodily process, and we're mostly comprised of water. So if we're not drinking enough, then our bodies aren't functioning at tip top shape.
Crazy.
And
So
you can make water like enjoyable. I love putting cucumber, lemon, mint, strawberries, blueberries, grapefruits, like whatever, to kind of make it a little more fun. Sometimes I'll even get a wine glass. Honestly, this is how like my brain works.
Yeah.
It's a treat then. Like I'm putting sparkling water or water with lemons and make it look pretty in my wine glass, and then I'm like super satisfied.
I love it. Well, so shout out to a friend of mine, Julie Morris, who has a superfood cookbook that Navitas used to we used to yeah, I mean we had a history with that, but she would went to her house in Ventura and she would add rosé, half the amount that you would, put, but then she would top it off with another half of sparkling water.
Yep.
With a flavor that would, blend well with that rosé.
Yeah.
So that was a cool
Yeah.
trick too.
I'll have to check out her cookbook.
Yeah,
Um,
super cool.
Living at a lake, that is the trick to when you're out on the boat. We would have wine, rosé, champagne, whatever, but we would add sparkling water to it to dilute it. And then, you're out in the sun, you're out in the water, like probably shouldn't just be having wine straight the whole
Yeah,
day. So yeah, the sparkling water thing is a good trick.
definitely. Nice. Well, I really appreciate this time. I don't want, take more of it, but it was so good talking to you.
I love talking about this, and I know my husband's probably like, thank goodness she's talking to somebody else besides me
Oh,
about it.
that's
But
so cool. Well, I'm glad I could
yeah,
help, I guess.
yeah, no, it's awesome. I'm passionate about it, and it's fascinating to me. So I really do. When I meet someone else who is like-minded, it's always a really nice organic conversation. So
Yeah, cool. Well,
yeah.
thanks again. I mean, I don't know what to say. I would love to, just keep in touch and, come back on it, later on. That'd be sweet.
Yeah, for sure. Anytime. Let me know if I can
Sweet.
if I can help you in any way.
I love it. Cool.